Welcome to the Flat Earth Debate Uncut and After Show. I'm your host Nathan Oakley, and if you are new to this channel, or you've not done so already, then be sure to subscribe, hit the bell notification icon and join button if you'd like to become a Nathan Oakley 1980 channel member and keep up to date with the Flat Earth Debate. If you would like to support the channel, there is a super chat that runs alongside each of these shows while they premiere, and there's also a PayPal, Patreon, crypto and thanks button in the info box below the video. Speaking of Patrons, I'm going to do a quick shout out to all of you who do support me on Patreon. So a massive shout out of thanks and appreciation to Moon Harvest. Let's start that again. Moon Harvest, Amish Earther, Naughty Thumbnails, Mitch Kennedy, Original D-Rose, Rod, The Name's Burley, Twad Wazzle, Jason Hornsby, Christoph Fournier, Flat Earth Travolta, JMels24, Unimento, M, Iron26, Endless, Flat Earth Sage, Golden McKinnon, Phoenix Rising 86, Retro Bill, More Books, Cannabear, Fibre Oats, Bogey, Michael Kahn, John Kays, Patrick Gunnels, Banter, Mel B. Styles, Hairy Blade, Mobile Max 777, Rob W, Reese Pound, Del West Watson, Maria Neeland, Unbelievable Productions, Blue Ridge Ranger, Henrik 86, Abraham Mohammed, Skeptic 936, Life is Short, Texas Mike, Tina Baker, David Wayne Foster, and Dank. So another massive thank you to all of you for supporting me on Patreon. Now I will hand over to whoever is in Discord and Google so you can enjoy their dulcet tones while I set up for today's live show. Good morning, good morning, good morning.
Good morning.
Good morning. That was a bit echoey, wasn't it?
Only because you've only just joined.
Good morning, everybody. Good morning, Nathan. How you doing, man?
I'm good.
Good.
So the next time you're not feeling so hot, can you just open up the Google Hangouts for us in a way where you don't have to let everybody in?
You mean do the job anyway, is what you're saying?
Are you still paying for Google Meet, Nathan?
Yes.
I don't think you have to anymore. I can run
Yeah,
a
you
10.
do. It was an hour instead of 30 minutes.
No, they were still in there over an hour after I opened it.
Yeah, that could have went on who knows how long.
I'll look into it. Every time I've looked into it in the past, there's always some promotional offer, and yeah, inevitably I'll just end up having to pay for it. I don't mind. It's $10 a month. It's not exactly a huge amount of money.
Okay, I don't know if I was just saying that we opened up one yesterday and it was open for several hours.
Okay. I mean, if that
Wait a
continues
minute,
to be
but
the
wasn't
case,
I the last one to leave?
I mean, if that continues to be the case after the show ends and you stay in there and in a month's time you're like, yeah, it still doesn't kick us out, then I'll be like, okay, fine, I'll stop paying them.
All right, then.
Wasn't I the last one to leave, though?
Yeah,
No,
but
Adam
I went back in later and it was still open.
Yeah. Yep. I think Adam had left his computer and stayed in the room, just expecting it to kick him, and he was still in there.
I see. Okay, well, worth knowing. Thanks.
It's kind of a conversation killer, but I thought you might want to know.
Not really. It's fine. I'll put members up.
Did anybody?
Go on.
Sorry. I was going to say, did anybody see that gruesome injury last night in football? The human leg is not meant to bend that way. It turned into a total U right on TV.
Very nice. Thank you for that.
Hey, have you guys seen Brian Keating videos?
Brian Keating?
Yeah, Dr. Brian Keating. K-E-A-Ting.
Tell us, what about him?
Let's see, just running down. He has 163K into the impossible. I feel like we did a video on him.
Okay. Well, thanks for reminding us. That's really kind of you.
No, I'm just saying that he's some type of, he was on the Joe Rogan talking about some NASA bullshit the other day, so. Yeah, he has a few clips that he edited out that we could go over.
It
You
can't
know,
be as
it's-
that
much as
name
the
is
bullshit as we heard yesterday with John's
yeah.
video with that. What's that? What'd you play yesterday? That
The elements of orbital mechanics.
yeah.
Yeah, it's
yeah.
I mean, it's really informative, and NASA explains to you how they need a flat plane to even calculate orbital mechanics.
Oh yeah, he sent me a message about that. Have you got the link to that?
Yeah, I can go get it.
Yeah, that'd be good.
How are you?
In the meantime,
Yeah,
Gene, if you wanna send us the links to Joe Rogan with your professor guy, then fine, I'll cover those too.
oh, he did one with Professor Dave. Says science is under attack.
Pseudoscience is under attack by us.
Yeah, space travel using wormholes. Oh, his fucking channel is full of it.
That's not science.
Yeah.
Thanks, John.
Yeah,
Well, it's got science in it.
stuff, if you want to get to
Sorry.
the juicy stuff, go to the 10-minute mark. That's when they start
What's the video?
explaining.
What's the video, John?
They go over the elements of orbital mechanics. It's
Who is
NASA's. It's a NASA video.
Well, it's science fiction, like the other guy. It's not science.
Argument
but
of
it's science
perigee.
fiction.
Time of perigee passage. The major axis of an elliptical orbit is the line joining the perigee and apogee.
Both of which require a flat plane.
Oh, you got there before I did. I just managed to pause it. Yeah, you got there before me. Oh yeah, this is going to be great.
Yeah, when they show that depiction of an elliptical orbit and the two red marks that they draw, that's the
Equatorial plane. Right, that's
Yeah.
the equatorial plane. Sod all to do with the globe burger. This is basically a globe burger, but they've got the globe offset like it's a pickle.
Yeah, they're just demonstrating an angular relationship. That's all they're trying to do.
Yep, off the red line.
Offset like a pickle. I see that.
Yeah.
Stay with me.
Sorry.
You're gonna need a flat plane for that.
Yes, sir.
Yeah, there's a video called "Our Biggest Obstacle in Time Travel."
Our biggest obstacle in time travel.
Yeah, there's
Meaning
a
the
small
title
problem.
attempts to juxtapose the physical with the pseudo-Riemannian, pseudoscience nonsense of space-time. Fourth dimensional space-timing is where you get your time travel ideas from.
That's
Our
what that whole
universe
movie
is flat.
Interstellar was about.
One more time.
That's what that whole movie Interstellar was about.
Yeah.
Space travel through wormholes.
Yeah, kind of. Doesn't he travel to a different dimension though? So he's traveling to a parallel universe. So at the end when he's looking back at himself, it's a different version of himself on a different timeline. So he's in a different parallel universe. It's all on that same bullshit.
Here's another video
Science
called "We
fiction.
Could Find Skeletons on Mars."
What on Mars?
On Mars,
What on Mars?
he said we could find skeletons there.
No, we can't. It's just a light in the sky.
Or he has another one called "How the Telescope Changed the World."
It did do
Another one
that.
called
It changed the world in the
Galileo-
mind's eye of a lot of people, I would say, yeah. Off the back of telescopes.
Galileo's Cannonball Drop.
Say again?
Galileo's Cannonball Drop, and another one called "Three Properties of Light."
Okay. Are you giving us links to these?
No, I'm just saying which ones tickles your fancy or tickles your fanny.
It's whatever you
however
send.
say it.
Just send one. If someone sticks it in Master B, there's a good chance I'll play it after this NASA video, which looks pretty old
Okay.
based on the graphics.
No, these are all pretty new on
Released
these.
1989. Yeah, it is old.
I wasn't even born yet.
Well, if you look in the comments of that video, though, you'll see that all the people that went to school for orbital mechanics bragging about how it's more informative than an entire year of study in the subject.
Oh, this is a good one with do you guys know Lex Friedman?
Yes.
Here's a 13-minute clip. A 13-minute clip where Brian Keating, Lex Friedman says, "What is space?" That should be a good one.
Gene, you're scattergunning us with all
Yes,
these
you are.
videos.
You are doing
Can we
exactly that.
focus on one?
All right, just one video.
Find
just
a
one
clip,
video.
get it to us, and randomly plugging random people with a vague idea about what they might be. It's just thanks, but no thanks. No offense.
Vague idea what they
I mean,
might
that
be.
do. Anyway,
All right, it's in the chat.
we can stick it in Master B. We'll cover it, whatever it is. Thanks, Gene.
Mhm.
Yeah, you're gonna have me saying pardon, and can you repeat that a lot today? I'm afraid.
Take a cigarette.
Hearing's just knackered. I just can't hear very much. That's all. I assume that's what
Sounds
you
like
just
you
asked.
need a Benson.
Say again.
I said, it sounds like you need to smoke a Benson and Hedges.
Benson and Hedges. Cigarettes.
Yes.
I don't follow.
Is that what people in the UK? It's on TikTok saying, "What do people in the UK have for breakfast?" And it says a Benson.
Oh, I see. That's someone saying they smoke for breakfast. Okay, fair enough. Whatever.
In the UK, so
This is an interesting factoid about the video that you have queued up right now. There are 6 elements to orbital mechanics, and 5 of them require Earth to be a flat plane.
What's the 6th?
It's a time element, but like eccentricity requires a horizontal in order to define Earth's gravity. You just have to go through them. It goes through them pretty quick.
Okay, well, it doesn't strike me as being anything other than a nice dissemination of what we cover. So this should be fun. Straight from NASA, but with just early graphics, right? 1989 graphics are going to be pretty poor.
Yeah, but it's just nice to hear NASA back our argument up. You know what I mean?
Yeah, but I mean, I'm just interested in some of the technical aspects of it. So the sort of standard that they were using to produce videos like this in 1989 would have been about the standard that I was trained on in college in about 1996. Because obviously we weren't being trained on the cutting edge stuff. It was whatever was out there and still available to get older for cheap when they probably moved on. Do you know what I mean? So I can probably relate to quite a lot of it because it was probably similar to some of the technical stuff I was taught in terms of how it ends up being produced. Anyway, that won't be what I focus on, obviously, because that's not what we do here. But you know what I'm just saying? There's a certain amount of nostalgia to watching a 1987 or 1989 rather NASA video for me.
Oh, I see. So you like look at it and say, I could do that.
Well, not just I could do that. I've always been an insomniac, so I remember staying up till 3, 4 in the morning, having to get up the next day at 6 or 7 to go to a school that was miles and miles away on a train, but still sitting up till God knows what time in the morning watching Open University because it was just there for you to watch on BBC Two. So the idea was you set your swanky video recorder to timer record your Open University course, and then you just watched it when you at your convenience. But if you just happened to be up at that time, you could watch it for free. Now, obviously, they're university level courses, but when you're whatever I was at the time, 10 or 11 years old, you're just like, oh, free content, because there wasn't much on TV. We had like 4 or 5 channels. So, extra content was extra content. So that's what I used to watch with my insomnia. And again, back then, the standard that would have been on Open University would have actually been worse than this, let's be honest. Back in whatever it'd be, 1991, something like that. It'd probably be a lot worse than the 1989 standard from NASA, which probably wouldn't have made its way onto Open University at the time. But anyway, it's just there's a lot of nostalgia in what we're about to watch. I can feel it. I can feel it coming. And that'd have been when I'd have been into this stuff more than anything as well. 11-year-old me was really into NASA.
Well, yeah, they do a really good job of hiding the dancing bear in this video. You know, we kind of covered it yesterday, but they put it out there so much, but they don't talk about it.
I don't really know. In the same way, if you listen to the anti-flat earthers, if we didn't exist and they were just out, Jem Panda was just in a pub talking to somebody about space, and they happened to ask him about orbital mechanics and the equatorial plane because they had a vague idea too. And he was like, oh, I don't know about this. And he just did a quick Google search. There's a good chance he'd parrot off the finer details of how it worked with a flat plane and not even care or appreciate that he's showing that it needs a flat plane, even when they describe the flat plane. It's only recently people like Phil Bell who have typically done exactly that, gone through the flat plane that they'll utilise when they're doing various aspects of whatever they're being asked about. And now we say, right, so flat plane required then. And they go, no, Earth's a sphere. You go, but you just told me how it needed a flat plane. You disclaimed it quite clearly and detailed how flat it must be and how you must have it and assume that it must be there, flat. But it's still a sphere? Well, that makes no sense. But if we aren't there to point it out, like the people producing this NASA video, they'll detail the equatorial plane like it's, well, so what? Yeah, we do it with respect to the angles that are coming in from the million bazillion miles away stars, and they get taken to the centre of a sphere Earth in the middle of the globe burger for convenience. Because it's a globe. You know what I mean? That's their mentality. They don't necessarily know that they're hanging it right out there that you need a flat plane for all this stuff. But, you know, whatever it is, 20 or 30 years later, we come along, go, hey, check it out. Look at all these flat Earth requirements in this NASA video. How'd you come across this anyway? Just served up to you because you're looking through this stuff on your YouTube searches, right?
Yeah, I was putting a presentation together for Quantum Racers channel, and I was like, why? NASA done it so well. Why would I need to put a presentation together? They've already done it.
Cool. Very cool. But you're right.
I mean, the standard.
If they're going to do it in a standard that disseminates what we need to get across to our audience, well, then why not reuse it? Better to have a hostile witness in some ways.
Yeah, a hostile witness that'll say the exact same thing I do.
With 1989 graphics. Which would probably be about a standard most YouTubers would probably do today. Don't you think? We'll see.
Yeah. It's not horrible. I mean, for 1989, it held up really well.
I would bloody hope so. NASA are on the cutting edge of cinematography. So, you know, a video presentation from NASA, I would hope, was of a supremely high standard. You know, even if they're presenting the mundane and boring footage that they, you know, play close to their chest in that regard, the actual standard of the editing, the presentation itself, I expect to be high. You know, I really do expect that to be high from NASA. Which makes me kind of ponder the anomalies that are put in there, whether or not they're semi-intentional. I left in there just for Easter egg hunters to find. Because it's like, I don't believe for one second that NASA's standards would drop to the point where they'd allow, maybe it wasn't NASA, maybe it was a Russian video, but where someone's dropping their keys while floating around, things like that. You just think, that I don't see how NASA would let that out. It doesn't seem to make any sense to me. Unless it's so compartmentalized that it slips by the people who aren't realizing that that's devastating. You know, leaving a glass of water in a video with somebody supposed to be floating around in 0G, for instance, with the Chinese. If they don't know that they're supposed to be looking for the fake non-gravity defying stuff because they believe it's all real, they're not going to see it. Do you know what I mean? So therefore it slips through because they're not intentionally looking for the continuity errors because you're not expecting any. You're not expecting there to be a continuity error in space. Well, they're just in space. Why would there be a continuity error? Because it's a production trying to fool you into thinking it's in space. So there's plenty of continuity errors. But like I say, with NASA, I'd expect them to catch those.
It's
So, yeah.
just like in movies. You're not looking for errors in movies, but those that do look for errors in movies, they find them all the time because it's a production.
Yeah, my wife hates me when I sit through movies with her because I'll point out continuity errors, editing errors, sound
Did
errors.
you guys see
Sound. Go on.
the Game of Thrones episode where they had a Starbucks coffee cup in the shop?
Yeah, well, that's a continuity error. But most recently, although not at the moment because my ears aren't working very well, I can hear the different cuts from I forgot what they call it, post production. So often they'll do sound that's on set with a boom mic, and then if something doesn't quite work or there's a plane flying overhead or something, they'll have to do it again post production. But when they do it post production, they do it in obviously a different place. They're not doing it in the exact same location on the same day. They just do it in.
Oh my god, that kills me in movies, man. When they have to re-edit it because they didn't catch it the first time from the actor, they have
Sure.
to go inside the booth and re-edit and put that word in there. Oh
Sure.
my god, it takes
And I'm
me
not
out of
talking
the
about.
movie.
Sometimes they'll do that for TV where they'll just take out a swear word. That's not what I'm talking about. I'm talking about where they just have to overdub what they've already done because they've, for whatever reason, messed it up.
That right there. I saw
I
it
can-
yesterday in the movie
I can
No
hear
Country for Old Men.
I can hear the difference. So in other words, you can hear that as a continuity error in this room because I've obviously treated it so I can hear clearly. Not that it's doing me much good today. But during a movie, that's something that irritates my wife greatly. I go, check it out. I wonder why they had to change that. She's like, oh, shut up. Because she can hear it too. In other words, she can hear that suddenly you go from outside, someone with a boom mic, diffuse sound, no reflections, to, oh, you can hear a bit of room reflection at the studio in that. You know what I mean? It's really subtle, but in this room, in End, you can hear those sorts of cuts. Or there was another one, there was a film with James Corden that we watched, and there was just an error in sound editing where, for whatever reason, they've got James Corden voice is always an AI, artificial intelligence, right? So whenever he's in a car or in a house, they put this sort of reverb on him so that he sounds a bit more robotic. But she, the person talking to him, isn't supposed to be suffering this same sort of reverb robotic effect. But when it is on there, because they've just rushed the sound editing and accidentally done it on her, obviously I noticed that immediately. And I'm like, oh, all right, they fucked that up good and proper, didn't they? You know, they put the echo on her. Suddenly she's like talking like she's the Tesla, the main character that's not a robot. Anyway. My point
I just
being,
hate when they do it in movies.
Again.
Good morning, guys.
Hey, Chocolate. Movies are rushed. Movies used to be art. You look at Alien, which we reference a lot. As a movie, in terms of who put artwork into it, Geiger, for instance, right? That effort, that sort of polish that we saw in the 80s and 90s in movies disappeared around the year 2000. Movies are now a rushed affair where they're riddled with continuity errors.
Do you notice that
You're determined to interrupt everything I say today, Gene. I can just detect it's going to happen. Before it's the third time you've done it.
I'm sorry.
Go ahead, but just go ahead and fine.
I'm just saying, have you noticed that YouTube now have hard-coded subtitles? Like every movie now is like being very hard on the subtitles now. Like they're putting it. What I hate in movies though, they post the words before the actor even says it.
I can only hear half of what anybody's saying today. I'm going to lean on you panel members a lot today. I hope you appreciate that. I can't hear what people are saying. I shouldn't really have done it.
Gene's cutting you off a lot. You're not wrong there.
Not that
Relax,
I know
Gene.
I can hear that. I just can't hear what he's actually saying. The intelligibility of my own ears is about 40%. I can only distinguish about 40% of what's being said. Anyway, don't worry about it. Just like I say, I'm going to have to lean on you guys a lot today.
Lean on me. Have you guys seen the movie No Country for Old Men?
I would suggest you mumble into your mic, given the disclaimer I just gave. Gene, thank you.
I'm not mumbling. How about now?
What, now that you're not mumbling, you're not mumbling?
He was mumbling. You got that right too.
I can't see what's going on either. I have to keep turning my head so that my ear that does work is pointing towards the speakers, which means I'm turning my head away from the screens. It's all right, mess. I should have another day off.
You don't have mounted headphones?
Doesn't make any difference. I'm in a completely treated room. This room is clearer than a pair of headphones, I assure you. All I've
Anywho, I
spent
was
my...
saying, did you... Go ahead.
No, you go ahead.
I was just going to talk about the stupid movie where I heard the post-production audio dubbing that it takes me out of it, just because an actor is speaking softly or under his breath. I find it very annoying.
That's just bad sound. That, again, is another... That's indicative of them being rushed. So, typically, if you're capturing sound and the sound guy says, the director calls cut, and the sound guy says, it's not clear enough, needs to do it again. They're turning away from the mic, they're not blocked the way that they're supposed to, so we can catch the sound. Let's just do it again. And regardless of if the visual presentation was good, they will do it again. Unless they're in too much of a hurry. And they go, no, we'll just have to leave it as it is. That's the absolute garbage sound. So, I get it. My wife's very into movies. She watches a lot of movies. I don't particularly, but she does, so I have to half the time. I walk out and do something else on the iPad or make thumbnails. Anyway, the point is, I'll be watching it and I'll hear crap audio. I'm like, the music's way too loud. You can't hear what's being said anymore. There's just a load of mumbling over the top of really loud music. You're like, yeah. But then if you do actually I can just turn off the left and right speakers so there is no music and just dialogue, and it's still really muffled and garbled. And when you actually make out what they're saying, it's of no significance. It's totally unimportant. It's not exposition. It's not points that are for the plot. It's nothing. It's just nonsense waffle with loud music over the top as they raid a bank or do something with explosions.
I saw a advertisement for the new iPhone 15. It said "From the edge of the universe," and it's like this big meteor coming to Earth, and it sculpts a titanium iPhone. I thought that was funny.
Meet the new iPhone, exactly the same as the old iPhone.
Yeah, it's from
faster.
the edge, not the middle, the edge of the universe.
But it is 15% faster, I'm sure.
I'm sure that update that they gave your old phone fucks it up too. Oh, are you familiar with Louis Rosman, Nathan? Hello, mic check. Hello.
Yeah, your mic's good.
You
Oh,
might be
are you
starting
guys?
the show.
Oh yeah.
Go on, you can continue talking.
Oh yeah. Are you familiar with the Louis Rosman guy? He does a MacBook repair video. Got pretty popular.
No.
Pretty
Well, he
popular.
has
He's got
his
like
company out of New York. That
a couple of million
what was that?
subscribers.
What was that?
Yeah, I know who Louis Rossman is.
Yeah. Anyways, last night he just posted a video saying he was just saying, man, I did all this right to repair stuff, and at the end of the day, pretty much he's like, Apple is just too good. Like he says, like his own repair service isn't a deal anymore, and he's just admitting that the production that they got, the MacBook, like they made it irreparable. Like he's saying, are these things not meant to be repaired? And it's a great video of like him just realizing like, did I do this for 15 years for nothing? You know, this board repair and all this stuff on these MacBooks, and he said they're just not meant to repair anymore. The cost of repair is dumb. You know, Apple can do it cheaper, and it's just a guy realizing his own. You know, it's time to kick out. Who knows? But I thought it was a real great video. If you guys are interested in that type of stuff.
You're gonna need a flat Earth for that.
Discord gang.
You're going to need a flat Earth for the impossible to repair new Apple products that we were talking about in the pre-show.
No, I just
Yeah,
figured
have you
I'd
seen
say
that
it
video,
because
Nathan?
Jaron hates it.
What is it with?
I would
Have you
say
seen that video, Nathan?
Okay, we're not going to do pre-show stuff, right? We're going to do a bit of housekeeping. Any evidence of a physical geometric sphere-edge horizon, formerly known as the curve of the Earth?
Negative.
not since 2020.
The horizon is not Earth curve. Some still believe it is.
Any evidence of axial rotation of the Earth-based variety?
Wait a second, we're moving?
Is there any evidence that we have axial rotation?
I just stepped out of my car, and I'm sure if we were moving, I would have felt it.
Well, Neil, some people think that the fact that we not moving is proof that we're moving.
Yeah,
Or
some-
that
Oh, yeah. Not seeing the effects of Coriolis drift is, for some, a proof that we have drift at 15 degrees an hour. I mean, it's insanity to show that we don't have it. You know, Usama Mandan is the best reference of this, so you and your reference frames are ruined. We're not going to see any drift that I claim when it's a Coriolis drift that the globe's supposed to have that we don't see. Any evidence
But
of the
the
distance to...
atmosphere, Nathan, the atmosphere, it moves with us.
Well, then we don't see drift. There's supposed to be 15 degrees an hour Coriolis effect. We don't see that. When they say the Earth and atmosphere travel as one, well, then we don't see Coriolis effect. That's their claim proof. The effect we're supposed to see to prove we're spinning is two separate reference frames. Coriolis deflection. So to say, well, Earth moves with the atmosphere. Oh, really? So atmosphere, that's sphere-shaped air oxymoron. Air doesn't take the shape of a sphere, it fills its containment. But the oxymoron sphere-shaped air surrounding the globe Earth that's turning also moves with the turning Earth, violating the first and second law of thermodynamics, to not give us an induced effect of Coriolis, which is what the globe uses to claim it's spinning. Okay, sounds very much like an anti-flat Earth rhetoric from an idiot who's lost his globe faith.
When you put it like that, it's so simple. Yeah, we don't see Coriolis.
Yeah, that's the debunking. What's that? We're supposed to have 15 degrees an hour drift. No, we don't. End of claim. Any evidence the
Yeah,
distance
that's quick
to
as
the...
hell.
Go on.
I said that's very sharp. That should be a type of black swan. It's like a dagger through the heart.
Dean, where you been?
People get
it's
Jedi
like
mind.
you really don't have to do much. They've basically taken away the effect that they just said they have by claiming that the atmosphere and the Earth are moving together. Well, you just put yourself in one reference frame. So what the hell are you doing? You just took away your Coriolis that needs two. So why are you telling us that there's two and that we can see drift when you tell us we can't see drift? All they do is give us reasoning for why we can't see the very things they claim to see. Just like curvature. Where's the geometric horizon now? Oh, we've never seen that. We don't claim that. You shouldn't expect to see that. But you're telling us it's there. It's blocking boats and buildings over there. Look, that's what you're saying it's doing.
Hold on. But
we're not saying that.
but to someone who's never heard this
insanity.
before,
He's not finished. Just, Gene, you've got to get a handle on interrupting people. People do want to just
Hello?
wait for the pause. Wait for the gap.
Hello.
Hello, Arwin. Go ahead, Chocolate. Just round out your thought.
No, I'm sorry. I was just kind of ranting about how every time they claim something on the other side of their mouth or the end of the sentence, they're going to claim something the opposite or something that debunks the claim they just made in the prior statement. Every time.
Go ahead.
Man, Chocolate was on a good one there, too.
Okay, thank you, Neil. Go ahead, Gene.
Well, no, this is just us understanding. As me, I think I understand about 60% of what you guys say, and I barely the Coriolis. It just dropped on my head right now after all those videos and everything. It just dropped on my head. What I understand it now. Like, yeah, Coriolis is it's very simple to prove that we're not moving, and I just thought that was a quick, short, concise way of killing the Earth rotation.
Sure, but you've already failed. You're saying prove we're not rotating. No. Just don't be fooled. Okay, let's just break this down into two parts. Part one, you've identified, and I'll agree with you. It's very simple. They say, that's important, they say, you don't have to disprove this, it's up to them to prove it. They say there's drift, Coriolis effect. Everybody who's got a globe belief is familiar with the words Coriolis effect and how it's indicative of a proof that Earth turns according to them. So they are the positive claimant in this regard. However, the effect, that's drift at 15 degrees an hour, because we have two separate reference frames, that's Coriolis effect, we do not see. Nothing's drifting. I.e., you don't launch a drone from the equator, an arbitrary and imaginary defined position based on elevation angles off a flat plane to Polaris. You don't hover a drone and see it drifting away from you as you turn underneath it at 15 degrees an hour. That'd be 1,000 miles an hour of the drone drifting away from you. Not because it's actually flying 1,000 miles an hour, but because the Earth is claimed to be turning underneath the drone at 15 degrees an hour. That's 1,000 miles an hour edge velocity that you would notice as the drone drifted away from you at 15 degrees an hour. We don't see it. Then we get into Chocolate's wrangled angle of how and why they explain why we don't see it. The 15 degrees an hour they claim would prove we're turning. Now that is the most complicated flat Earth discussion point there is. Bar none. Complicated as it gets. When it gets into the wrangled angle of their anti-flat Earth, separate rhetoric of globiolus effect, with its pseudo-sounding claims of physical Earth turn that's going to be assumed without proof, and an atmosphere turning with it without proof, and a minor deviation north to south that is imperceivable, that's what they'll start claiming. Well, you've got to understand all of the above to be able to argue it, as opposed to just go, there is no Coriolis effect. Well, yeah, you're right, there isn't. But then when someone like Simon Dan turns around and says, we wouldn't expect to see any, you and your reference frames, Nathan, the ones you're claiming, says Simon Dan, are ruined. What, my claim of Coriolis effect on a turning Earth? So when your high-profile, claim-to-be globe-proving numpty like Simon Dan turns around to you and tells you that your gene, reference frames you're saying, should give drift, because you did, when you said that you can show how it doesn't happen. Well, it's not your claim. But it becomes your claim if you're not careful. And suddenly you're having to argue for how we should have drift at 15 degrees an hour, but don't. While they tell you that we shouldn't, we wouldn't expect to see it. And suddenly you're all confused in what you should or shouldn't be proving, or should or shouldn't be debunking. Coriolis is complicated. But there isn't any. There should be if we're turning. We're not.
But shouldn't we say there's no Earth-based Coriolis?
It was on a really good thought there, Neil. You've ruined that thought from Gene. Go ahead, Gene. I'm sorry about Neil.
You're apologizing for Neil? Anyways, so you basically got to jump in front of it and say, hold on. Who says we're moving? Because my cousin yesterday, he says, can you imagine if the Earth stopped moving?
Again, that's a fallacy of automatic assumption when it comes to we are turning. Imagine how disastrous it'd be if we stopped. Okay, well, do you want to prove we are turning first?
All right. Can I say something, please?
Well, what would be turning exactly?
Maybe
No,
I
it's their
can't say
claim.
nothing.
It's their positive burden, is the point. Go ahead, Neil.
Yeah, but
There's
they're
no
already
such thing
assuming
as...
what would be turning, right?
Arwen's determined
Holy
to ruin
shit,
you.
Arwen, thank you.
I heard your
Forget
name.
it.
He's heard it, but he's determined. Go ahead, Neil. Second time's a charm.
Isn't it easier to say there's no Earth-based Coriolis? There is a Coriolis effect. You could demonstrate it on a roundabout, but as far as Earth-based Coriolis, that don't exist.
Sure, but I'm trying to wire the audience to understand that you could take the anti-globe position of stating that there is no Coriolis effect. I'm suggesting that isn't necessary, that you should only hold a positive claimant to task if they claim that there isn't an effect to be seen. And you go, well, that doesn't prove anything then. So there's nothing to see here. So there's nothing that we would notice that would prove your claim we are spinning then, based on your claim that there's nothing to see, no drift to observe. I mean, that's fine for you to say as an individual. Meanwhile, the globe claims there's 15 degrees an hour of deviation as the Earth turns underneath stuff. That's what will induce Coriolis. You don't have Coriolis unless you've got a separate reference frame turning underneath stuff. Therefore, for the globe claim to be true, Earth's turning underneath stuff. It isn't. But that's down to point out to a numpty that claims that we're not going to see Coriolis deflection, there's nothing to see here, point out their own positive claim from the globe and humiliate them after they make their positive assertion. Regardless if it's anti-flat Earth, oh, we won't see any effect. Well, how are you proving we turn then? And then explain it to them if they don't understand. Alternatively, if they say we do see drift, you say, oh, right, so Earth turns underneath aeroplanes, shortening their flight times when travelling west? Absolutely not. It's totally absurd. When they say, oh, well, it wouldn't affect aeroplanes, yeah, you can be damn sure a non-inertial turning reference frame turning underneath an aeroplane to give you the effect of it drifting, aka Coriolis, which is absolutely the globe's claim, you'd notice and it would shorten the flight times if Earth was turning underneath them to give you Coriolis. If Earth isn't turning underneath the aeroplane, then it isn't going to be giving you Coriolis effect. So we haven't got any proof of Earth turn. But to get to that level it's taken me 7 years.
Right, but recognizing the danger, because within the Coriolis argument, you are begging the question that Earth has a radial value and an axis to turn upon.
Yeah, I'm sure there's a...
That was my point, right?
Oh, was it, Arwin? Well, then you go ahead.
How can it turn if it hasn't, if it is in the shape already?
You'll need a flat Earth for that, John.
Well, for the radius value, you will, but just because the Earth's flat doesn't mean it has an axis. You know what I mean?
No, absolutely not. Sandwiching the equatorial plane antipode doesn't give you a globe Earth. It gives you a model, if you want to call it that, with two flat planes sandwiched underneath one another. Antipodal from one another, rather. Let's move on. Any scientific evidence of gravity?
So are all of the planets flat?
What do you mean planets? Planets is just a description in the heliocentric model, one of many names ascribed to lights in the sky. But as for them being flat, they're just one-dimensional as far as I'm concerned. They're just points of light in the sky.
And we're not up there.
I don't know what up there would be.
Where the rest of the lights in the sky are. We're not up there orbiting with them.
You're missing my point. I don't know if they've got a location of sorts at all. I don't know what they are to ascribe them having a location for me to not be in, is what I'm trying to say, Neil.
I could tell you what to call it, but you wouldn't.
What,
I
like
call
it,
it a
agree?
hologram.
What, wouldn't get any evidence from you when you did?
Well, how can I? How can I provide that evidence other than pointing out the missing of evidence and the consistency of that missing evidence?
Lack of evidence isn't going to prove anything, though, is it?
What do I look like, India over here?
I will, but not scientifically.
It's not going to prove anything. It might disprove their position if you point out a lack of evidence. In regards to gravity, the current rhetoric is it's pseudo for space-time bending. So who cares?
Right, but by giving it a name, I automatically summarize the specific points that led up to it becoming that name. So it's pointing out, like, it's not even like declaring what it is. It's just pointing out all the specific factors that are all not present leading up to that name, pretty much. That's what it is. To point out, hey, we only have an angle. We can't actually get there. We don't even know what it is or how it exactly works, other than how the angles work.
Perfect segue. But, well, before I do the segue into elevation angle question, 81 people watching, so massive warm welcome to all of you who just joined us. Please smash the share button if you've not done so already. Any evidence that you can acquire an elevation angle measurement from a curved baseline?
Not as of yet.
One more time.
I said not as of yet. Nobody has they get an angle from the center, but not from the surface of the Earth.
Why doesn't my compass work vertical?
I've got to take umbrage with Neil there. No one's ever done it
just
from the
make it
center.
parallel.
Oh,
Is it just make it parallel from the center of the Earth? Like, oh, from the center of the Earth, oh, parallel that. Oh, it's on the surface now. I mean, once you allow yourself to like make angles from the center of a ball Earth, then everything is good, right?
No.
No, don't they do it? Isn't that the Hell's Angles?
Hell's
No,
Angles, yeah.
nobody's been there.
Can't be there. It's transposed.
Nobody's taken it. Yeah.
Go ahead, Adam.
Just to say, nobody's been there. Nobody's ever taken an angle from the center of a presupposed ball. Yeah. You only ever take an angle from the surface or in relation to the surface, a flat surface.
Right.
When you take it to the center of a ball,
Can you guys today, can you hear other people still talking when you start talking? Can you hear them? Adam's still in the same thought. He's had 3 attempts to get out.
Yep, and I thought I'd rumpus Neil's rumpusing.
Please, can you not?
I phrased it wrong. Adam's correct. I'm wrong.
Okie dokie. We've got a little treat today. So, from the annals of history, we've got a 1989 physics video from NASA, and it's been published, I don't know, 10 or 12 years ago now. But the video itself is really, really, really old, and we've already watched maybe a minute of it because John was looking to do a presentation. I'll give you a little bit of preamble, and then I'll let you reiterate it, refracted curvature. And his task was to produce a presentation in regards to using the equatorial plane, etc., all the stuff we cover with celestial navigation and the globe burger, i.e. how Earth must be flat for them to do this process. And instead of actually producing his own, he's gone, well, this hostile witness, NASA, has done it all for us. So let's have a look at that. Anyway, there's my little preamble, John. If you want to give us a bit more insight into what we're going to be watching, that'd be great.
Yeah, it's the elements of orbital mechanics, and they'll explain to you. 5 of the 6 require Earth to be flat, so it's going to be a cluster screw.
Okay, I mean, as always, although it's NASA, with a slight bitter taste in my mouth, please let them know. At Nathan Oakley 1980 sent me. So there's a link going by in the live stream chat if you are watching, if you're amongst the 82 people watching. So one person shared. Please share the show. Let them know. Just go over, drop them a nice friendly link with a comment that says something like, "We responded to your video." At Nathan Oakley 1980 sent me, or something like that. Just keep it clean so it doesn't get immediately removed by the videographer. In this case, NASA STI program. So as John's already alluded to, the title of the video is called Spaceflight, the application of orbital mechanics. And the channel, as I say, is NASA STI program. So please let them know at Nathan Oakley 1980 sent me. So we're going to get right into it. Let's do it.
This line is also referred to as the line of Apsides. The first orbital element is the semi-major axis. It is simply 1/2 the major axis.
You're going to need a flat plane for that. It's depicted on screen. So far, globe in this depiction, redundant, not needed. Surplus to requirements.
Circular orbits have no apogee or perigee. Therefore, the semi-major axis is simply 1/2 the diameter of the orbit.
Yeah, that's the celestial sphere.
Right, the orbit is being described with respect to the movement of the stars in the celestial sphere.
Yes, that's apsis and periapsis, and apogee and perigee.
The observation thereof taking place on a what's the term? Flat plane.
Oh yeah, they're going to tell you that here in just a minute.
Axis is used to define the size of the orbit. From this, the orbital period, or time that it takes for the satellite to complete one orbit, can be calculated. The shape of an orbit is defined by the second orbital element called eccentricity. For all ellipses, the value of eccentricity lies between 0 and 1. The larger the value, the more elliptical the orbit. A spacecraft in Earth orbit with an eccentricity equal to or greater than 1 will escape the Earth's gravitational field.
Interestingly enough, eccentricity is how much something deviates from horizontal. Horizontal.
Is that right? I didn't know that. That's why I kept my mouth shut. So you're going to need a flat plane for that eccentricity.
Absolutely.
Epic.
When orienting an orbit in space, a three-dimensional coordinate system must be defined.
Uh-oh. It sounds like we're going to be needing a Cartesian flat Earth system then.
The coordinate system commonly used is the geocentric equatorial coordinate system, which has its origin at the Earth's center.
On a flat plane. John, I'm stealing your thunder here.
No, go ahead.
He just described a flat, non-rotating, stationary plane as the center of his coordinate system.
That's correct. So when we say, I should have given this a bit more drama. All of the things we described in the last 6 months, where we've started to filter in this terminology, all roads lead to a flat Earth. Here, we are having NASA detail precisely how flat Earth must be, and how this takes place in a Cartesian system at the center of a globe Earth on a flat plane. That's how it works. Your orbital mechanics require a flat Earth to infer. In other words, you start with a flat plane and angle measurements to the celestial dome of the heavens off the equatorial plane. That's a flat Earth. And then you infer that the angle from that center point in the center of a globe Earth is projected out to the surface you're no longer standing on when you detail the globe Earth that you're not measuring from, not utilizing, and not putting into effect the angles that you actually measure. They're going to take place inside a globe Earth on a flat plane. All roads lead to flat Earth because, say it with me, Earth is flat.
Well, I like that saying, but couldn't you say as an alternative, like all measurements lead to a flat Earth? Because that's pretty much what that is, right? Like every time you start to measure things, or you know what, with the baseline, all the measurements eventually, like, yeah, it doesn't, none of this works with the measurements unless you assume the Earth is flat, because it is.
Yeah, precisely. For any of this to be back calculatable and still function, you need it to work with stars, and the angles that work to give us the descriptions in these mapped out star maps, or the almanac itself, they're all derived from a flat plane. You can't get around it. That's why it works this way. That's why it's never changed. You're always measuring elevation angle measurements with respect to the flat plane. That's why planes, aeroplanes, fly that way. They're not working with the idea that there's a void opening up in front of them at 8 inches per mile squared. On the contrary, the Earth is dealt with as flat, even when you infer it's a sphere.
This coordinate system is a non-rotating reference system in which a satellite's orbital plane tends to remain fixed relative to the stars while the Earth turns beneath it.
So, reversing the actual motion that we observe then. Check out what's on screen, ladies and gentlemen. That would be a flat plane that can have points plotted anywhere on this area and expanding out massively beyond it. Ergo, it doesn't work with the globe. The points that you can put on the equatorial plane have no correlation to the sphere Earth. It's wrapped around and surplus to requirements, and you can infer that the angles taken from the centre emanate out through a surface you're not standing on. But this is the world we're dealing with. This is how it's dealt with. This is the equatorial plane that all reference to the sky will be derived from. Earth is flat. This is epic, John. Great video.
The XY plane is the Earth's equatorial plane. The positive x-axis points to the vernal equinox. This is the point where the sun appears to cross the Earth's equator on its way north on the first day of spring each year. The z-axis is along the Earth's spin axis toward the North Pole. Nodes are points in a satellite's orbit which intersect the Earth's equatorial plane. The ascending node is the point at which the spacecraft crosses the equator going from south to north.
Given that what's being detailed is with respect to the equatorial plane and only works at the vernal equinox, if 10th Man was here, he'd expand on that. What are they detailing when they talk about spacecraft? Well, they're talking about an extrapolation taken from a flat plane put into a motion that is in respect to the stars that have been measured off a flat plane, and then detailing how it physically works out in an orbit that only exists in mathematics. Hence, space is fake. They've invented an area that they say is the stars that have been measured off a flat plane and claim you can put orbits or put items into orbit. You can't. It's a derivation in respect to a flat plane. There is no falling around a sphere because there is no sphere.
The descending node is where the spacecraft crosses the equator going from north to south. The line joining the two nodes is called the line of nodes. The orientation of an orbit is determined by 3 orbital element angles.
I'm going to bet you need a flat Earth for all 3.
Well, they are angles, so yeah.
The right ascension of the ascending node,
you'll need a flat Earth for that,
is the angle between the x-axis and the ascending node.
X-axis is the line along the ground that's a flat baseline. You're going to need a flat Earth for that.
It is always measured eastward from the direction away from the vernal equinox in the...
Yeah, because that's where it only works when you transpose this into the reification of a sphere Earth. Then they match up on the vernal equinox, and that's how it's all derived. Isn't that why we end up with these crazy distances where the sun is claimed in the heliocentric model to be closer in winter? I forget.
Yes, it has to do with the calculating these calculations is why they say that. Yes.
As I say, if 10th was here, he'd expand on that, but he's not.
Earth's equatorial plane. The argument of perigee is the angle between the ascending node and the point of perigee.
You're going to need a flat Earth for that. That's a line along the baseline described with respect to the equatorial plane. That's a flat plane. That's Earth being flat for this measurement to exist in the first instance. You're going to need a flat Earth for that.
It is measured in the orbital plane in the direction of spacecraft motion. Inclination is the angle between the equatorial plane and the orbital plane.
You're going to need a flat Earth for that.
If he says the word plane one more time in relation to this ball.
I was going to say, like, the amount of times he says the word plane, we're having a ball on the screen. The magic trick is hilarious.
Yeah, just erase the ball and you get reality.
The ball, what's the ball got to do with it? Everything's being done with respect to angles off these two planes, the orbital plane and the equatorial plane.
Yeah, you would only know that if you're listening to it. But if you don't know any better, you're just watching, you just think this is happening in the middle of a sphere.
Exactly.
Satellite, which has an eastward velocity component at the ascending node, has an orbital inclination lying between 0 and 90 degrees.
Again, you'll need a flat Earth for that measurement.
Such an orbit is called a prograde orbit. A satellite which moves due north at the ascending node is in a polar orbit. Polar orbits have an orbital inclination of exactly 90 degrees. A satellite with a westward velocity component at the ascending node is in a retrograde orbit and has an orbital inclination between 90 and 180 degrees. The 5 orbital elements explained thus far describe the size, shape, and orientation of the orbit in space.
With respect to a flat plane.
The final element is a time value used to locate the satellite in its orbit. A satellite moves in a very predictable manner. It stays on schedule. Thus, if the time at which a satellite passes a particular point is known, the time when it will pass any other point can be determined.
They got fake images because, in spite of them not having the black area, this is claimed to be in space, based on the diagrams that preceded it. Therefore, what we're looking down from is the sky vacuum. Well, all of these high-pressure clouds and high-pressure gases that are below this satellite would all be dispersing into the vacuum that this is claimed to be in. So this is fake.
The particular point chosen is perigee, and the time of perigee passage is the last of the 6 orbital elements.
Yeah, so you don't need a flat plane for the time.
Unless you're going to associate it to perigee, and then you will. But for time itself, you don't need a flat plane. But
right.
If you're going to associate it to perigee, you will. So that one was kind of iffy, so I just let them have one that wasn't.
I think if you're measuring the time it takes something to traverse a flat plane.
Yeah, but
you're not just taking time. It's the time of it moving across a flat plane.
Yes, with respect to what it's timing, it's with respect to a flat plane, but the time itself he's detailed specifically as one element and then linked it back to perigee, was it? Or whatever he linked it back to. As soon as he does, as John just said, then you're going to need a flat plane for that. But to just assert the time itself, no, the time doesn't need a flat plane.
No, he's not asserting the time. He's not saying it's 9 o'clock.
No.
The time is only in reference to how much time it takes to transit across a flat plane.
Sure. So he's going to need a flat plane for that.
Without a flat plane, his time has no reference to it. It's got no reference point. You can't have the 6. It requires a flat plane. It's 6 out of 6.
Fair enough.
All right, fine. All right. Yeah, I mean, I'm not going to be able to argue that, but I just let them have one so they could feel better about themselves.
If he wants the time boiling an egg, he doesn't need a flat plane.
The timing how long it takes to traverse a flat plane, you'll need a flat plane for that.
Unfortunately, I do think that's the case, yeah.
The 6 orbital elements depict a spacecraft's orbit in non-rotating coordinates. To visualize an orbit relative to the rotating Earth, a projection traces the spacecraft's position on the Earth's surface. The projected path is called the ground track. As a satellite orbits the Earth, the ground track shifts westward. There are 2 causes for this.
Problem with that. Because I don't think that satellite is on the ground.
No, you're confusing a Bev Try Thinking argument where he misunderstood the description of a ground position for a star, i.e. the position beneath the star on the ground. Well, likewise, although we would have already... we have debunked the notion that there's a tin can floating around in a sky vacuum, their notions of the ground path is where it would be on the ground if you looked above at that particular time, according to them. Just so we're clear.
First, the primary contributor is the Earth's rotation toward the east under the orbital plane.
You'll need a flat Earth for that. See, the rotating Earth gives you the non-rotating motion of this when described, because you can't have it both ways, can you? You infer that the non-rotating path of the satellite is in respect to the rotating path of the Earth. No, the stars move, the Earth doesn't. That's why it's got to be described as this. Earth being stationary. That's how it will be described, because that's what's actually happening.
Second, because the Earth is not a uniform sphere and bulges at the equator.
Earth's not a sphere. The derivation of the assertion that it is came from a flat plane.
Its gravity is greatest at the
Gravity being greatest? What, like it's a force? George Musa, Scientific American. Quote, gravity is not a force. How can it be greater when it's not a force?
equator. This causes the orbital plane to rotate slowly around the Earth's polar axis.
Sounds like a cause and effect relationship based on a non-force of a gravity that hasn't been a force for 107 years. This is just nonsense.
In a motion called precession.
So the gravity of the plane causes the plane to rotate slower or faster. You're still using a flat plane, dude.
Describe it.
Precession is toward the west for prograde orbits and toward the east for retrograde orbits. For low Earth orbits, such as those of the Space Shuttle at 150 miles altitude.
This is not a space shuttle out at 150 miles altitude. This is clearly fake as hell.
Yeah.
Not to mention the fact that the black area depicted in this imagery is claimed to be 10 to the minus 17 torr vacuum, and the area below is claimed to be high pressure gas that would expand into the area of vacuum if it were true. This is just nonsense. Sky's not a
What do you
vacuum.
mean
The
that's
gas would
fake?
fill the space.
What do you mean that's fake? I'm sure they sent the cameraman out there in front of the space shuttle to get that fantastic footage. What do you mean?
There's no space shuttles in a sky vacuum. The gas would fill the space. This is a second law of thermodynamics violation.
The
I don't know.
westward
They're
shift
showing it. You've never been up there.
I've seen Thunderbirds too. 108 people watching. Massive thank you to all of you. Smash the share button. Please share the show if you haven't done so already.
the ground track, due to the Earth's rotation, is about 22.5 degrees, while the shift due to precession is only about a half degree.
You'll need a flat Earth for those degree measurements. This isn't looking good, John.
The inclination
Yeah.
of a satellite orbit determines the north and south latitude limits of its ground track.
Two things that need a flat Earth. The measurement itself and the latitude position you'll reference it to. Both need a flat plane.
Well, I think this could definitely represent balloons on a high wind stream drift. Right?
Maybe. They're claiming
On this
orbital
sheet.
motion, though, Arwin.
Yeah, sure they do.
Well, no, they are. That's what we're covering. As much as your speculation is fine, I guess.
The minimum
I'm just
orbital
looking at the
inclination.
graph.
Yeah, sure. I'm not
Sorry.
denying that there might be that motion. But I don't care. I'm not claiming it. They're claiming it's orbits. After extrapolating out data from flat planes that they keep mentioning over and over and over again.
Is equal to the latitude of the launch site.
Go on.
I was just going to say, like we say often that orbits are begging the question. Now that begs the question of what are they begging the question of? Because I have not heard them reference any of this to a sphere one time.
And is achieved by launching due east. For example, if a satellite is launched due east out of the Kennedy Space Center, which is located at 28.5 degrees north latitude, its orbital inclination will be 28.5 degrees.
Another couple of things that'll need a... Its inclination measurement and the latitude description both need a flat plane.
And the limits of its ground track will vary between 28.5 degrees north latitude and 28.5 degrees south latitude. If launch azimuth or direction of flight at launch measured eastward from due north is increased from due east, the orbital inclination angle
You'll need a flat Earth for that.
increases as well as the maximum latitude of the north-south
You'll need a flat Earth for that.
ground track. Therefore, the latitude limits of the ground track
You'll need a flat Earth for that.
equal the new launch inclination.
You'll need a flat Earth for that.
Similarly, if launch azimuth is decreased from due east, orbital
You want to do it instead? Go ahead.
Well, no, I was just going to say it's going to be repetitive after this point. If you want to just move on, all they can do is reference it to a flat plane. They've already went through the elements, and like Adam detailed, even the one that I was willing to give them would be in reference to a flat plane. So if you want to do that other video, it's just they're going to keep referencing a flat
Why?
plane
That's
over
fun.
and over again.
This is
Okay.
fun. They're not shy.
We'll give it a couple more minutes.
inclination once again increases, as well as the latitude limits of the ground track. The maximum practical inclination from a Kennedy Space Center launch is 57 degrees. This limit is imposed for safety considerations in order to keep the spacecraft and its booster system from flying over land masses during the ascent phase. To obtain an orbit with an inclination greater than 57 degrees,
Yeah, you're right. They're just going to keep talking about degree measurements off a flat plane constantly, aren't they?
Oh yeah, that's all they have. And it's like once you see the trick, you'll never stop saying it.
the
So next
spacecraft
time
is
somebody
launched.
talks about orbits,
It's nuts, isn't it? I can't unhear this every time I hear him say angle. Just go, I know what the angle is going to be measured off of, a flat Earth, because you can't get an elevation angle measurement or any other angle measurement in this respect from anything other than a flat surface. So it's all with respect to a flat plane.
From Vandenberg Air Force Base in California. Vandenberg offers the opportunity for southerly launches with orbit inclinations between approximately 70 degrees prograde through 138 degrees retrograde.
And you can put the terms in, but there's still angles that need a flat Earth. Yeah, I mean, I'm happy if you want to leave it there. I'm happy to move on from this video if everyone's got the point in the audience. So we're all appreciating that it needs a flat plane. If you're watching, hopefully so.
No, I think they
You want
hung
to move on to the
themselves.
second video?
Well, I've got it queued up, right? So this is Lex Freeman, right?
Some people come here
So
looking.
yeah, I'll cue this up and we'll cover this now. So we're going to cover this. The channel is Dr. Brian Keating, right? So as always, let him know at Nathan Oakley 1980 sent me, and give him the heads up that we responded to his video. So this will be whizzing its way by right now in the live stream chat. So yeah, just let him know at Nathan Oakley 1980 sent me. Please leave a nice, friendly, clean comment so it doesn't automatically get deleted by the videographer. Is there a particular timestamp, or do you just want us to get into this, Gene? This is Gene's selection, by the way, so blame Gene if it's awful.
You can just skip through it. I just thought it was for a goof, but go ahead.
I mean, do you know a particular point where it gets...
I mean, I just saw the title and I said it was going to be a shit show, so.
You watched this?
Woohoo! Blind watch review.
No, but I at least want to know that the person...
Before we go on.
Go on, John.
I was just going to say, before we go on, I would like to applaud NASA on doing a lot better job detailing how we require a flat Earth for orbits than I ever could. That was very well done. And I'm serious. I want to thank NASA for doing such a good job.
Fantastic hostile witness.
You didn't win the Nobel Prize. The team of Bicep that led the Bicep 2 didn't win the Nobel Prize because of some space dust.
That's right.
Big
schmutz.
Which one is the moon? Which one is...
That one's the dust.
The
Space dust, yeah.
There's no such thing as space dust. The idea that there's an area of low pressure where the gas we breathe at high pressure could vacate into to have dust in is absurd. So straight off the bat, this is nonsense.
Is this,
what are we looking at?
Lex
So why
and Brian Keaton?
Come again, Chocolate?
Is this Lex Friedman with Brian Keaton? Is that what this is?
Yes.
Oh, we're going into heliocentric wonderland now.
Why is space dust the villain of this whole story?
Well, it's funny, you know, I wrote these books, and I don't know about you, but when you get all these books, I'm sure you get books, people send you books. They always come in these dust jackets, right? I was always like, what the hell is a dust jacket? Like, how much dust is raining down at any moment? I mean, this is immaculate. This room is Russian tidiness galore. But in a normal household, how much dust is raining down? It's not really until I wrote a book. And I realized, I'm writing a story about the origin of the universe.
Is this going to be a false equivalence?
And the prologue, to the cosmos. And dust is going to cover this story. It's actually more a story about astrophysics and cosmology than dust. And this is the link.
The pure pseudoscience then.
Between the cosmological and the astrophysical. So what does that mean? So astrophysics is, broadly speaking, the study of physical phenomena.
No, definitely not. It's pure pseudoscience. Physical? What, when you're looking through your little telescopes and coming up with your maths? That's definitely not physics that you're dealing with. Physical and natural world would be covered by science.
Best in the heavens, astronomical phenomena.
Testing it, well, like experiments and stuff. Tests in a scientific context is hypothesis actualization. You're definitely not doing that.
Cosmology is concerned with the origin, evolution, composition of the universe as
another total pseudoscience then.
A whole, but it's not really concerned with stars, galaxies, and planets per se, other than
planets. What your words you ascribe to little lights that have got a weird motion you can't explain beyond making up stories about what they do in the in-between period when it's not dark.
How they might help us measure the Hubble constant, the density of the universe, the neutrino content, et cetera, et cetera.
All nonsense.
So we have a tendency.
Yeah, we're thick into it.
I'm sorry.
No, we're right into the thick of it. You're right, Chocolate.
To kind of look a little bit, they're like, not all astronomers and astrophysicists are equal. They're all equal, but some are more equal than others. So we have kind of a prejudice.
Why? No, they're all bullshitters. Every last one of them.
There's this little swagger, right? And cosmologists are studying, we're using Einstein. We're not using Boltzmann. Or we're thinking of the biggest possible pictures.
Why? Einstein's been thoroughly debunked by quantum mechanics. You're using the pseudo geometry of Einstein? Why would you do that? You think this is physical? It's right there in the title of his geometry. Pseudo.
In so doing, you can actually become blinded to otherwise obvious effects that people, would have not overlooked. And
right, effects. So we're talking about the physical, we're talking about effects. Then great, we've got a method to establish the cause of those. Like, actually advance our understanding. It's called the scientific method. It exclusively deals with effects. It's all it does. So obviously we've had lots of hints at science, so we're going to have these effects that people might have overlooked being studied in an empirical method, aren't we?
In our case, when we sought out the signal, we were using the photons that make up this primordial heat bath that surrounds the universe.
What? Primordial heat bath that surrounds the universe? I'd like to see some evidence of that in physical terms.
Only at 3 degrees Kelvin, approximately.
Approximately? Well, surely you've measured this, right?
We're using those as a type of film onto which gravitational waves will reverberate.
You're using it? You mean you're just making it up? Not something you've gone out, measured, studied. Nothing with physicality to it whatsoever. You're layering it on top of the pseudo geometry of Einstein. You're doing that, are you? Oh, wow. I mean,
it's just using computers, Nathan. This is like from the actual supposed readings, and now it's just models in computers, and they forget it's just models in computers, and they think it's real.
Well, he said it was physical. He said the word physical. He's just a fraud.
It, make them oscillate preferentially in a polarized way.
What when you layer something on top of pseudo geometry, do they physically vibrate in that pseudo geometry of bent space-time? No, they don't. You're a fraud.
And then we can use our polarized sunglasses, but in a microwave format, to detect the characteristic twofold symmetry pattern of under rotation.
What? You detecting something that exists only in pseudo bent space-time geometry? No, you're not. Definitely not.
Sorry. But yeah, Nathan, he's saying it so eloquently. I mean, he's really good at this technobabble talk. Very fluent.
Oh, yeah. That's why I prefaced it. We're going to be in heliocentric wonderland with this guy. And the funny part is, right, not to knock him, but he claims to be from what I've heard of him, he claims to be an experimentalist at whatever university that he's studying. So he's supposedly doing science in quotes using the scientific method, but then he'll talk about all this other cosmic nonsense that he thinks he's doing science on. So it's kind of a funny thing with this guy.
He's a fraud. Complete fraud.
Yep.
That's the technical way that we undergo it. I mean, there's a lot more to it.
Sorry, that was a sentence fragment and a half. That's the technical way that we don't know. Is it? Well, talk about having confidence in what don't know. I don't know what that word means.
But there are more than one thing that can mimic exactly that signal. First of all, when you look at the signal,
Is this what you got back with your polarized lenses when layering something on top of pseudo geometry? Yes, total bullshit, mate.
Signal, if inflation took place, big if, but if it took place.
Inflation, a concept within Einsteinian pseudo geometry. That inflation that you're layering something on top of and then looking at it through polarized lenses. This is all bullshit.
The signal would be about 1 or 2 parts per billion of the CMB temperature itself.
Temperature of the cosmic micro background. That would be the lights in the sky you looked at through the temperature measurement capabilities of your telescopes, because they've got thermometers in the vision that you see through them, have they? No, again, just complete bullshit.
So a few nanokelvin.
So based on the temperature measured through your telescope.
CMB is a few Kelvin. The signal from these beams.
Go ahead.
I was just wondering, when he levels his telescope, is that with respect to what?
Flat Earth.
Modes would be a few nanokelvin.
So when he measures
Go on.
I was just going to say, when he measures a return signal from said telescope, it will be with respect to horizontal then.
Yes.
That's
yes, indeed. All roads lead to a flat Earth, including all of this visual-based thermometer discussion that he's having, with the minor difference in Kelvin when looked at through polarized lenses. What he means is, this whole bullshit's brought to you by spectroscopy. That's what that means.
It's astonishing to think Penzias and Wilson, 1965, measured something that's 1 billion times brighter. And that was what, 60 years ago? Let's call it 60 years ago since they discovered it. Moore's Law, you're more expert than that. Let's call it every 2 years.
So are you about to compare Moore's Law to observing twinkling lights? You're talking about the development of technology versus observing twinkling lights. Okay, let's see where this goes.
So you're talking about like 2 to the 30th power, doubling or something like that at that. So let's call it 2 to the 20th, something like that. So that's like only 2 to the 10th is a 1,000, right? Correct my math, I'm wrong.
Yeah,
2 to the 20th is 1 million, right? 2 to the 30th is 1 billion. So we're outpacing Moore's Law in terms of the sensitivity of our instruments to detect these feeble signals from the cosmos.
You're getting really good at looking at the lights. Sorry, weren't you just detailing its difference in Kelvin? Am I missing something, Adam? Did I miss something in those strings of numbers where he told us what powers were? Did I miss something?
And they don't have to deal with, in the semiconductor factory in Santa Clara, California. They don't have to deal with meteorites and things like coming into the laboratory.
No, neither do you. No, nothing. There's no space dust. There's nothing coming from space. There's no sky vacuum for things to come from.
It's a clean room. It's pristine. They can control everything about it, right? We can't control the cosmos.
But yet there's a difference in Kelvin when looking at things, do you? I see. So what, just disclaiming how big a bullshitter you are before you go on to some more bullshit, right?
And the cosmos is literally littered with particles of schmutz, of failed...
No, it isn't. No. There's no sky vacuum to have schmutz in.
Planets, asteroids, meteoroids, things that didn't coalesce to make either the Earth...
Coalesce? When describing the uneven distribution of mass causing the bent space-time in the pseudo-geometry you layered things on to look at with polarized lenses, to then describe how you haven't got a controlled environment to infer the Kelvin differences. I mean, I can keep up with your bullshit, but it's still bullshit.
From a flat plane.
Oh, yeah. Damn. There's that Lamborghini. You're going to need a flat plane for that bullshit.
The moon, the planet Jupiter or its moons, or get sucked into them and make craters on them, etc.
Sucked into? Lights in the sky? being described in orbital motion by way of about 5 assumptions, but then notwithstanding that the forces aren't in place anymore, but you've got bent geometry that you can layer things on top of to look at with polarized lenses from a flat plane,
etc. The rest of it is falling, and it comes in a power spectrum. There's very few, thank God.
Who's this guy? Is Brian Keating nodding along like he knows what he's talking about?
Pixelub-sized, impact or progenitors that will take out all life on Earth. But there's
what? No, nothing's going to be taking out all life on Earth from space in the same way there's no schmutz in space. No, that's not going to happen. No, your reification outside of the pseudo-geometry of Einstein isn't going to kill anything. It's not physical. Yeah, but your fear-based porn isn't going to be, jerked off to here. No, we don't do that here. You need to get people's attention, though, don't you? So drop in a subtle little fear-based mind control trick by talking about how life will all end. What, from the schmutz in a place that isn't real? Yeah, life's going to end because the Narnia region's going to deliver something really horrible. No, mate, no. But on most normies, this would work. You'd have their attention, wouldn't you? Me, you just sparked a bit of outrage with your total bullshittery.
There's extremely large number of tiny dust particles and microscopic grains.
No, there isn't.
And then there's a fair number of intermediate-sized particles.
No, there isn't.
It turns out this little guy here is the end product of a collapsing star that explodes in what's called a supernova.
No, it isn't. It's just some bullshit you made up whilst rubbing your fingers together like a magician. Like a literal magician. No, you don't have stardust in your hands. There isn't any stardust. There's no dust. There's no space. There's no descriptions of your stars being massive. There's no implosions. There's no white dwarfs. There's no really heavy stars that have collapsed in on themselves, creating this tiny little bit of stardust that you rub together like a magician. It's all nonsense.
Type 2 supernova. So stars spend most of their life fusing helium nuclei, protons, into...
Yeah, you can do the magic trick too. Yeah, it's just nonsense, mate. It's almost like you're making what your maths about the pseudo-geometry of Einstein into physical reality by just holding something. Like a really cool prop.
Neutrons into helium nuclei. And then from there, it can make other things like beryllium and briefly make beryllium and carbon.
No, it can't. There are no collapsing stars in a sky vacuum. If they were gases collapsing in on themselves to forge the heavy elements that then get exploded out into space, coincidentally, only after supernova do we have the gases and heavy elements following entropic law and dispersing into space to create us with these elementary particles that have been forged in the hearts of dying stars for Michelle Thaler to claim that the rocks are our cousins. That's this bullshit. Yeah, again, I can keep up with his nonsense, even though it is baffling to most. However, so while the star exists in a sky vacuum, becoming more dense and collapsing in on itself, not expanding out into the vacuum, upon forging the heavy elements, it will then explode and disperse in line with entropic law, according to this bullshit. So, half its life it defies the second law of thermodynamics until it's forged all the things that we need to create life in their bullshit narrative. And then it explodes, depositing all of these heavy elements throughout the universe, in line with the second law of dispersion. So, half the story as entropic law working for it, half working against in defiance of the entropic law of nature we experience always. This is a crap story. Full of plot holes, full of defiances of natural law, except when you're depositing out the stuff we need to make our bodies, then it'll fall in line with entropic law to disperse it. Dispersion, second law.
Carbon, nitrogen, oxygen, all the way up until it tries to make iron and nickel. Iron and nickel are endothermic. It takes more energy than gets liberated to make an atom of iron. When that happens, there's no longer enough heat supplying pressure to resist the gravitational collapse of the material.
But gravitational collapse, pressure, we've got two concepts here. One is pressure. That would be the force, the gases you're describing imploding with fusion or fission or whichever one it is to create these heavy elements in the heart of this dying star that he's describing. So it's going inwards, creating pressure in. Hold on. Pressure with gas is it moving in all directions at a high velocity. Oh, what's that you say? It's counteracted by bent pseudo four space-time? You're telling me that the uneven distribution of mass when described by Einstein bending an invented medium known as space-time in is literally quoted as being pseudo-geometry for this crap. That is your get around for this violation of the second law of thermodynamics, creating pressure, the very thing that would defy the second law of thermodynamics. No, mate, no, we've just undone that at its very heart. Yeah, this sits very much in defiance of the second law of thermodynamics. What was that? The guy nodding opposite you thought you were really smart, did he? No. He was just duped by a little prop that you gave him. Really easy, wasn't it? Just hand him something, some little bit of bullshit, and he's holding it. Next thing, everything you say is physics. Even though it's literally described by the man who invented it, that's Einstein, as pseudo-geometry.
Material that was produced earlier,
Well,
so the star form.
Good.
I was going to say also, whenever they talk about the eccentricity of an escape velocity of these particles that are being created in stars, it's always with respect to the horizontal of that star, but they don't claim that star is horizontal, the surface of it.
No, they cherry pick.
So that's a
They
problem.
cherry pick from their measurements. Not from their measurements, from their calculations, the bits that are relevant, and then describe the flat Earth measurement like it's a non-issue to just drop in the fact that you're measuring it with respect to a plane, with all respects. But they still waffle on about orbits. It's like, how can you have an orbit if the description that you've got it from comes from a flat plane? Makes no sense. They obviously don't recognise the doublespeak. We've only just started recognising in the last 12 months, so. Great video, Gene. Great video, John. Both today's selections were great. Hopefully everyone's enjoyed the show. But we are going to have an after show.
Yeah. If you look in the comments of that video, people like talking about how great a job they did. And I can't disagree. They did a great job detailing how you'll need a flat plane to even calculate orbital mechanics. I mean, it was a home run.
Yeah, now just use that, John, right? Say you run into one of these guys that left that comment and you break it down to them like you broke it down to us. How do you think it'll be received?
Well, they would have to accept it or they'd have to deny everything that they just heard. I mean, they're the ones that said it, not me. It's funny, they have to either deny orbital mechanics via the flat plane or try to hold orbital mechanics on a flat plane. But they can't do both.
Are they playing stupid, John, or do they know what time it is? They know what's up.
No, it's the dancing bear. I was trying to, just because you don't see it because you're focused on something else, but it's there. The bear is dancing in the background the whole time. It's just nobody's seeing it. We're seeing it now, but we didn't see it 4 or 5 years ago.
Yeah, when everything hits the fan, they're going to say, we were showing it to you the whole time. We were showing you Earth's flat. You're just too dumb to realize.
Yeah, that is probably what NASA will say.
Well, this video is pretty old, right? It might have come out around the time NASA put it out, their little document telling us how it's they have to accept the Earth is flat, non-rotating, to do anything when they put their vehicles in the air.
Possibly. But it's there in everything that they do. They just don't acknowledge it. It's like a part of their dogma that they've erased, and now they just don't speak about it. But it's still there. You know what I mean?
Except when they do acknowledge it. Like they have certain instances where they'll tell you without telling you, but they'll tell you, we're assuming the earth to be flat and non-rotating. Those are their words. But why would you have those words for something that's not supposed to be flat and non-rotating? Why would those words even come to your brain to use? Why would you go with that sort of a method? Wouldn't you come up with a method that would require the very ball that you believe you're on?
They can't. That's the whole thing. So they'll make their confessions and say, we said it. Think about it, Chocolate. How would they be able to do it? We're realizing now that nothing can be done on a sphere to tell us everything is done on a sphere. It's impossible. So they have to tell the truth and explain to you that it's all taken from a flat plane. Motionless. Non-rotating.
Well, it just shows you that when lives are on the line, you can't pretend anymore. Right? Except for this little pretending they do when they're taking elevation angles and they pretend they're doing it from the center of a sphere. I don't know why they're still playing pretend mathematics there. Because nobody's at the center of a sphere. Why are you pretending you're taking angles from there when you're not there? You're on the water. Why the hell would you do that? That's just ridiculous. Oh, because math? Oh, okay.
That
That's
has to do with
ridiculous.
the celestial sphere, isn't it? The armillary sphere. If you were holding the armillary sphere and try to pinpoint something on the sky, a latitude line, for example, wanted to put you do the dials and everything else. So you're looking at a position in the center of that you're holding in your hand, which is giving you your position on that equatorial plane that the celestial sphere is referring to. But that's not you there in the center.
No, you just pretend that it is. You just play pretend with mathematics.
Yeah,
You know what
equatorial plane.
The next video I'm going to get is on P waves and S waves and how they use them to measure the center of Earth from a flat plane.
Nice.
Even radar is kind of my new thing right now. How are you going to use radar to measure the distance of the sun?
You're going to need a flat plane for that.
Are we talking Earth sonogram?
Yeah, but there's when you fire out those signals, right? It's going to be with reference to something, so that you can, measure their return signal. So I can about guarantee you, it's going to be with reference to a flat Earth. Well, I can't guarantee you. You need an angle of the return signal. So yeah.
Well, it would have to be, right?
Isn't it? You need to have a baseline for any of this. This requires a baseline.
Yeah, and the interesting thing with the sonograms, right, or the P waves and S waves, is they can't apply refraction to that, because you're shooting it through there is no visual data. It's all with reference to the surface of Earth.
India landed on the southern hemisphere of the moon.
No, they didn't.
The cartoon certainly did.
So the moon has land now?
I know y'all seen
bet you if
some
they were
old
gonna-
timey scientists. Go ahead.
I was going to say, I bet you if they were going to give a coordinate to that position on the moon, it would be treating the moon as a flat plane as well. So I'd like to see how they figured out their coordinates.
Yeah, but they're calling a light in the sky land in order to land on that light in the sky.
Oh yeah, it's stupid. Yeah. But in mathematics, they're probably will demonstrate them going from one flat plane and an apogee, perigee, whatever, traversing through an area that can't exist to land on another flat plane with respect to its celestial sphere.
Hold on. I seen a fly the other day land on my light bulb. So don't tell me you can't land on a light in the sky. If
No,
a fly
I'm
could do it, then NASA could do it.
I'm talking about the coordinate system that they're going to apply to that light in the sky and how they're going to describe this mathematically.
Yeah, they're going to require a baseline to do that, to calculate the journey and return. To calculate the fuel to go to the moon and back, for example, they will need a baseline for that.
Yeah, that's the reason. The real reason there's no telemetry data. That's the real reason. Because looking into the telemetry data would show you all the maths came from a flat plane. That's why we don't have it.
Maybe
that
things are
also lost
different
in the
up
fire?
there in space.
I would have said that any telemetry data would expose their use of a flat plane, actually.
Well, yeah. If the math that they're going to have to use to calculate that telemetry data needs a, like we
If that shit was real, they would have that telemetry data in any form it could possibly be in, up in a museum somewhere. They would have never lost it. You don't do something and then lose the data that you used to do it. It's just nonsense. They taped over it.
The greatest feat of mankind, right? And they lost everything.
Well, maybe they actually at the time were so afraid that foreign agents would secretly steal the telemetry data that they thought it would be better to just destroy it all, right? Otherwise, other nations might have figured out like how to do it, and it just like, yeah, they don't want to admit it.
Was it Mission Impossible? This telemetry data will self-destruct in 3 seconds.
Yeah.
Other nations that were involved in the same nonsense?
Yeah, like Russia. And apparently it all leaked out because now China is there and India,
Well, maybe
I've seen people try. I've heard of different people who've come out during the course of time where they, like Russian agents or whatever, that have tried to say that there's something going on with the NASA program or nobody went to the moon and shit like that. But those guys disappear. You don't see those guys. They say something once and then they're gone. You don't ever hear from them again.
I think we covered here on this channel once a couple of years ago. Israel claimed that they crash landed on the moon as well. It was a
Crash landed.
failure mission.
The
Yeah,
bare sheet.
It was
Bear
the
sheet one.
cheapest. It was the cheapest attempt ever, right? That one time, like they were priding themselves. Like Netanyahu was there and all that. They were priding themselves on like that. This was the cheapest type of like space event that has been ever achieved, and they were so proud of that.
All of this means that
Obviously,
the greatest
they're Jewish. They
astronaut
will
in the
buy the
world.
cheapest product.
All of this
So
means
you
is the
see that
greatest astronaut.
India,
Yes, keep talking
India is like
simultaneously.
It's not. When I start talking, I'm not hearing anybody, and then halfway through, then I hear somebody. I'm going to get it out. The greatest astronaut in the world is make believe. Then, if NASA's not real, Steve Austin does not exist, and he was my hero as a young child. He was the $6 million man.
I mean, from a television series.
Dun, 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 dun.
Yeah, that's fiction, though.
Your hero is a dude who broke both his legs, his arm, and his eye, and had to get them all replaced.
Hey, listen, he fought Sasquatch. He fought the Bigfoot. That's when the show started jumping the shark, though.
Did you know that if you actually turn cyborg, that you'll have to like take pretty severe immune suppressants the rest of your life? Otherwise, you'll literally get sick and immediately die. And that's unavoidable for any form of cyborgism. They didn't tell you that in that series. You're not going to look as normal.
We can rebuild him.
Stronger.
Faster.
Dun, 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 dun.
Aging quicker. Getting more sickly.
You don't know that for sure. And the other hero was The Wild Wild West with Robert Conrad. Those were the two freaking shows.
We can rebuild him. We have the technology. We just don't want to spend a lot of money.
and we lost the telemetry data in the fire.
Steve Austin, astronaut, man barely alive.
I can't lie, I used to
Well,
like
can you
that show.
imagine?
Oh yeah.
I was
I like
more of a
the
Captain
18.
Planet guy. You guys didn't watch Captain Planet?
I did.
How do you go from Steve Austin?
Honestly, I always hated that cartoon. I don't know why, I never knew why at the time, but I could never stand that cartoon. I don't know why.
You didn't like the heart ring?
Just the it was just one of those cartoons that just irked me every time it was on. I don't know why.
Because it was proto SJW is why.
Right, you had
The
four
one I
kids
never-
that could
the
like
one-
rain. You had four kids that could rain apocalyptic destruction upon everything, and then you had this one little kid run around with a heart ring that can make people feel different. You know, he had to be so pissed, like just mad at the
Yeah, he had to be
The
pissed
one I
until he
never
figured
liked-
out how we could create a world government by literally taking over everybody's heart and then become the ruler of the world. But they never get to that part.
The one I never liked was Carmen Sandiego. I never understood that shit.
Well, you're all stuck in the cartoons. What about the cartoonist? What about Walt Disney and Warner Von Braun and NASA and all these projections of outer space and journeys to the moon and living in the vacuum of space? It was based on his illusions that we got to this stage.
I like my women a little older.
Yeah, I do remember as a kid that all the time they used to have, when they would play that Wonderful World of Disney crap, there was always like a little NASA, like a little 5-minute, 2-minute, 3-minute NASA talk from somebody from NASA, some scientist, in a white coat, or somebody in a lab or something, or just showing you a cartoon. I always thought that was a little weird. Why it was always NASA with Disney.
They go hand in hand.
Like with dinosaurs too.
Isn't even arguably Disney involved in some of the earlier projects from NASA and stuff with the CGI, and weren't they kind of involved?
It's all a make believe, selling dreams. People love it.
It is a great baseless assertion, so let's nobody challenge it.
Okay.
These kids, space and dinosaurs. Bingo. Now you got dinosaurs in space. I've seen a mobile with dinosaurs and space together, like a crib thing for when a baby's born. Chocolate, you probably would have had that if you were born yesterday.
No, yeah,
Okay.
that is one of the things that my nephew was born. Right, leaving the hospital, they give you a packet, and it has like 9 balls, and they're all planets, and then a little coloring book of dinosaurs. I thought that was crazy.
Exactly. Wasn't it you, Chocolate, that had you said that your parents had a mobile over your crib or something?
Yeah, I had a solar system mobile over my crib.
Yeah, but now they'll have dinosaurs
You
in the
remember
solar
your crib?
system.
Say again?
You remember being on your back looking at the solar system?
I don't really remember it, but my parents did have pictures of me in the crib with the mobile over it. I don't really. I can sort of kind of recall it, but I'm not going to say that I do. But
Wow, you got some memory then, if you could recall that.
Those are his suppressed Saiyan memories before he got adopted on Earth.
yeah, we can go with that.
Right?
That checks out.
And then after the moving me out of the crib, the first mattress that I had rockets and space stations all over it in space.
Whoa.
That I remember vividly.
Well, just to let you guys know. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Yes.
Loud and clear.
We're gonna have the first Mexican in space pretty soon.
Oh shit.
Yeah, there's plenty of space in Mexico.
Are they gonna send somebody in a rocket there? Is it gonna be like the South Park episode where they send the whale to space?
South Park sent a whale to space.
Yeah.
He's gonna be riding a sombrero.
Or they sent the whale back to the moon because that was the running joke. That the guy at Waterworld, like he played a trick on the kids by talking in the mic, saying that he was the whale and that he was from space, kidnapped, and he wanted to go back to the moon. And then they bought it all and then literally get him launched on a rocket in Mexico back to the moon. It's quite an episode.
Yeah, the sombrero makes sense because it's shadowing his face, his head. That's what the sombrero is for. Make sense?
Yeah, that checks out.
After all, we can see stars from space. Oh, I wonder if we can see it. Maybe we cannot see stars from space.
because it's a palpable black, deep black.
I was trying to
I don't
quote
know
my
if that,
favorite astronaut, Tom Pettit.
I don't know if that's fair, man. If you were trying to describe a place that didn't exist, you'd have continuity errors too between, you know.
Ah, man, you got to get your story straight. You either see them or you don't see them. You can't like sometimes see them, and then sometimes you don't see any.
Well, that's the problem, when you're going to have a fictional universe that's claimed to be in the same dimension as our regular experience universe, versus where you go to a magical place like Narnia or another dimension or a drug experience based dimension or whatever, right? Because then, yeah, you could just argue, yeah, well, things work differently here. But no, they had to pick outer space to be in the same dimension and everything. And yeah, now you're going to be bound by physical rules. Oh, yeah, you got a problem now. Isn't that just hilarious?
You could always go the Chalky route and say that the law of non-contradiction or nature doesn't care about your law of non-contradiction.
What? He said that? Wow.
Yes, he explicitly stated that nature does not care about the law of non-contradiction.
But I think it kind of does.
Well, I think he was speaking with authority for nature, and then he's anthropomorphizing nature into a person that he can speak for and represent. And then because he didn't care about the law of non-contradiction, therefore nature doesn't.
But isn't it like basically non-contradiction is like a law of nature, wouldn't you say? Or it would be philosophy, right? Because contradiction is information based. I don't know. It's not really physical, but a law of logic, right?
Yeah, but that's not
Yeah,
a
but
math.
that's some human bullshit we're putting on nature. Nature doesn't care about anything. Nature is just nature.
No, absolutely nature cares about things. Like nature abhors a vacuum. So it does care about certain things, right? But it's just going to do what it's going to do. And, well, contradictions are unnatural. Like a paradox is not natural. Like that, you can't expect that to actually exist because it's paradoxical, right? So that can only exist in the imagination because of the misunderstanding of it. Or in the math, because in math, things that aren't actually possible can be virtually possible.
And asked nature, and then nature told you nature abhors I abhor a vacuum from nature. No, it's just a figure of speech. Get real.
Oh, you don't always have to work on the really is level. No, but I mean, it's just wrong. Like I would see it as like it's unnatural to say that nature definitely doesn't accept contradictions. Like you're not gonna find that in nature.
That doesn't mean it accepts or denies it. Get the wrong emphasis on the wrong syllable.
Okay, how about nature abhors contradiction? Nature doesn't like it when supposedly a gas will not fill a vacuum, right? Like, no, nature definitely does not accept that.
Keep on telling yourself that.
Are you saying that nature will accept that?
Are you high?
No.
On your own supply.
I don't have one.
Isn't that rule number 1?
Of what?
That's rule number 4, actually.
All right.
All right.
So you do like rap, John. See, look at that.
Not rap. That's Pulp Fiction. Rap sucks.
Okay.
Except when it suddenly does, and then you're all a fan of it. And then you forget about it again. I have a memory, John.
You're telling me you never once drove around with my song playing in your car, man?
Yeah, you got that right.
What the hell, man? Where's the support?
I did have to put up with it a little bit in Berlin, out at the clubs. But
Why they were into hip hop back then? Over there?
remember they had the holiday rap. Remember?
Ugh. To me, that's the worst type of rap.
Really?
I can't stand it.
Did Nathan pass out or something?
No. He's an absentee landlord.
He's still there. Okay.
So he
Oh, they
walked
weren't
away
using-
for a minute.
Say again?
I was just going to say, so he walked away for a minute, so we all got quiet.
Yeah, whatever. Oh, and that numpty was talking about, he was talking about the CMB, by the way. They weren't using telescopes on Earth. They were using satellites. Toby, DMR, and Planck.
They're aeroplanes, or they're just making it up.
Just making it, I don't know. There's not too many satellites out there in the second law of thermodynamics violations. I think they're just making that shit up. Oh, no swearing.
Nah, he had the glasses, man. Pull out the glasses.
But now, if you're going to use Sophia, which is from a plane, you would need a plane.
That's pretty good when Bassano pulled that stuff out back in the day, wasn't it? He was pretty cool with stuff like that.
Yeah, that was fantastic.
He had a list of all the balloon launches from the, was it ESA? Is that the European Space Agency? I thought I got them around here somewhere.
It's balloons, people. It's balloons.
It's balloons, people. That's a good
He was great with that shit.
Sounded just like him.
Whatever happened to him? Do you know?
Well, I haven't heard from Robert in maybe 2 years. He came on my show a couple times. We were doing an evaluation of Professor Thermodynamics. I think that was Phil. Yeah, he was on there. We were doing a review of Phil.
Well, y'all were on several shows together prior to that, though, weren't you?
Years before that. So 2016, I think I stumbled onto his show.
Okay, so it was his show that you were going on. It wasn't like y'all meeting up at a neutral platform kind of.
No. We played a show with we're talking about the sun with a professor from or astrophysicist from NASA in charge of. I can't even remember what they call themselves. But I had some expertise in that area, so I messaged Robert, and I think he had an eye for talent.
Okie dokie. It's going to be where we round out. So with that, I'm going to say another huge, massive, enormous thank you to both Discord and Cheapest Panels for making today's after show possible. And of course, a massive thank you to all of you in either Nathan Oakley 1980 or Nathan Oakley promoting streams, hopefully smashing the super chat, liking, commenting, sharing, subscribing, joining as a member, and all that good stuff. I've been Nathan Oakley, and I'll see you all in the next video.
What a lovely day!